Ugh, you sure gotta climb a lot of steps to reach the top of the pyramids here at Teotihuacan. Man, the societies that lived here must have been grand. Well, I wonder who that sad-looking fella is. He looks a lot like the eagle that led the Aztecs to Tenochtitlan. Let's see what he has to say. The Spanish conquered Mexico to extract mineral wealth. They didn't develop internal markets. The whites had all the power, independence didn't help. Instability and war would abound. Foreign interference, the loss of half of its land, stagnation and even more chaos. A dictator brought stability, an investment plan, but the peasants didn't share in the wealth. The dictator was ousted, revolution was born. The factions, they battled, yet more civil war. Then a new constitution with progressive reforms. The PRI party would come to the fore. They would co-opt the revolution. Control of groups, repression, and electoral fraud. They stayed in power for 70 years. The PRI did accomplish some amazing things, kid. Their adoption of import substitution policies through high tariffs supported industrial growth. Production of oil was nationalized and communal farmlands created for indigenous groups. The policies led to a period known as the Mexican Miracle, which was characterized by high growth and low inflation. Rock music arrived as a fashionable thing. The government approved it and gave its blessing. Imported records, expensive bands in Spanish would sing. The Beatles and psychedelia, a global sensation. Mexican youth wanted in. With records hard to come by, they formed their own bands, but in English they'd sing. In English they'd sing. The country's stable growth was impressive to all. Mexico would host the next Olympics. Students protested, political change was their goal. The PRI saw this as a threat. The government sent in soldiers at the students they shot. Hundreds would die at Tlatelolco. A dirty war against opposition, no, it just wouldn't stop. The kids would soon retreat from the scene. The youth disillusioned, music was an escape. A new hippie culture that some would find great. A more open lifestyle and drugs they would take. In 1969, the Byrds played a concert at the Olympic Stadium. Kids rushed the field and chaos ensued. The authorities decided that mass youth events could not be controlled. When the Doors arrived later, put on a concert at the Plaza de Mexico Bull Ring, they were denied permission and only allowed to put on a show at a small nightclub. The Avandaro Rock Festival, 250,000 were there. It was Mexico's Woodstock. The kids raised foreign flags and smoked dope without care. The elite was just completely appalled. A crackdown would follow, rock clubs were shut down. For 15 some years, rock would go underground. Middle-class kids would turn towards a folk movement sound. In 1978, vast amounts of oil were discovered in Mexico, and the country would borrow heavily in dollars. However, the fall in oil prices and the increase in U.S. interest rates led to a devaluation of the peso in 1982. As a result, the country would default on its foreign debt, and an economic crisis would ensue. Universities made a space where rock and roll could be found. A market opened up at the Chopo. Bands began to create a uniquely Mexican sound. Botellita de Jerez was just grand. An earthquake shook the city, many buildings would fall. The government response was lacking, people answered the call. Rock bands played to raise money, kids were involved in it all. The government had to recognize this new reality. Rock and roll was back in. Record companies would embrace it, but now bands sung in Spanish, a golden age with lots of grooves. After years of protectionism, the Mexican economy had stagnated and productivity was low. The new Harvard-educated president embraced neoliberalism. He saw privatization and competition as a way out of the funk. The government began to pursue free trade agreements with the United States of America. The country opened up to the rest of the world. Rock and roll was part of the equation. The city's first stadium gig in 22 years. In excess, the Australian rock band. And just 2 months later, Josh would arrive to study at college, a twinkle still in his eye. They were the mExpat years. It's time to lose those fears. Let NAFTA reign.